Hello friends, welcome to the Movieology channel. Today, I will explain an Indonesian horror movie called Janji Darah, which means blood oath or blood promise. So, without further delay, let's move directly to the video. The film begins in a factory, where we see a boy named Rayhan and his cousin Dinda. Both of them came to this factory because they wanted to see ghosts. Rayhan's grandfather often told him they could see ghosts, but needed to pay full attention and focus correctly. Both arrive at the factory, where Dinda is eager to see a ghost. The truth is that Rayhan was a psychic child who could see ghosts. According to him, the first thing required to see ghosts is focus. The more attention you give, the higher the chances of seeing them. Now, Dinda was very curious about how she would see the ghost. Dinda climbs onto a large machine, and Rayhan sees a ghost, which he tells Dinda to turn left to look at slowly. However, at that moment, a red demon emerges from the machine. This was the first time Rayhan had encountered a demon, as until then, he had only seen harmless spirits, not demons. Rayhan realizes this demon will kill them, and immediately tells Dinda to run. Both of them start running, but suddenly Dinda falls, and the red demon gets very close to them. At that moment, Rayhan suddenly wakes up, and we realize he is an adult. This was all a flashback, and he often has nightmares about it. Now we see that Rayhan is married, and his wife is Sheren. Rayhan's mother has been eagerly waiting for a grandchild, but there has been no good news. They've been trying, but haven't been able to conceive. The following day, they discuss this, and then both of them head to work. Rayhan drops Sheren at her office and leaves. A little while later, Sheren begins to feel something strange. She goes to the bathroom and takes a pregnancy test, which comes out positive. She is overjoyed and immediately video calls Rayhan to tell him the good news. Upon hearing this, Rayhan is ecstatic. It's now nighttime, and they are both heading home. These moments were very special for them. But as they drive, a shadow quickly passes in front of Rayhan's car. He couldn't make out what he saw, but whatever it was something only Rayhan saw. Sheren didn't notice anything. As I mentioned earlier, Rayhan has always been psychic, so that he can see spirits. Anyway, they both reach home. Rayhan is deep in thought and trying to go upstairs, when suddenly his wife Sheren calls out to him. But he is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't hear her. Sheren calls out to him again and beckons him towards her. At this, Rayhan walks towards her. It was now nighttime, and once again we saw a shadow near a picture of Rayhan and Sheren. In the deep night, Rayhan gets up to drink water, and at the same time, Sharen's eyes open. Suddenly, the lamp goes out and won't turn back on. Sheren tries to turn on the ceiling lamp, and while it does light up for a moment, it immediately turns off again. She tries again, and this time it stays on. Meanwhile, Rayhan returns, and Sheren tells him everything. He then starts replacing the bulb in the ceiling lamp, but suddenly the voltage spikes, and Rayhan is shocked. This was unusual because this had never happened to him before. The next day, Rayhan drops Sheren off at the office and makes an excuse about an emergency meeting to return home. This was when he could stay home and try to sense if there was any spirit there, as Sheren was not around. When he gets home, he encounters a spirit, an old woman named Siti. Rayhan recognizes her immediately. Siti had borrowed money from Rayhan's mother when she was alive, and now she had come to ask Rayhan to tell his mother to forgive the remaining debt. Rayhan tells her he will speak to his mother about it, so that Siti can rest in peace. He then asks her if she was here the previous night. Siti replies that it was her first time coming here. Hearing this, Rayhan starts to wonder. If the spirit from last night wasn't Siti, then whose was it? Afterwards, Siti leaves, but Rayhan notices that the glass frame of their picture is broken, and the same spirit appears again near it. The doorbell rings, and no one is there when Rayhan opens the door. A little while later, the bell rings again. This time, a delivery boy arrives with a parcel. The parcel contains a baby stroller that Rayhan had ordered for his soon-to-be born child. Rayhan asks the delivery boy if he had rung the bell earlier, and the boy denies it. Later that night, Sheren is overjoyed to see the baby stroller. The scene then shifts, and we see Sheren in the kitchen making juice. However, she notices that the baby stroller starts moving towards her. She thinks it's a joke from Rayhan, but he wasn't there. As she goes to the stroller, something grabs her foot from underneath, causing her to scream. Rayhan immediately rushes to her, and Sheren tells him everything. After hearing this, Rayhan decides to take the stroller upstairs. Sheren tells him that someone grabbed her foot, but Rayhan doesn't take her seriously, as this has never happened to him. Later, Sheren talks to one of her office friends about these incidents, and the friend suggests that if she feels something unusual, she should ask her uncle for help. Her friend's uncle was a psychic. Sheren didn't know that Rayhan himself was a psychic. That evening, Sheren tells Rayhan about everything that happened, but suddenly, Rayhan interrupts and says they don't need a psychic, as it would be a waste of money. However, Sheren is quite frightened, and Rayhan tells her that the more attention they give to spirits, the more they will torment them. He advises her not to pay attention if the lights start blinking. Sheren then asks, "What if something worse happens to us one day?" Afterward, Sheren bathes and asks Rayhan to help her with her back rub. However, during this time, Rayhan receives a call, and the spirit comes and starts rubbing Sharen's back. Sheren thinks it's Rayhan, but suddenly, Rayhan arrives, and the spirit vanishes. Rayhan explains that he had been talking to his mother, so he was late. Sheren gets terrified because if it wasn't Rayhan, who was it? Well, now Sheren had no choice but to meet her friend's uncle, so she went to his place. She tells Kazman that her niece, who works in his office, is her friend, and she shares the strange events happening to her with him. After hearing this, Kazman visits Sharen's house and brings some broomsticks. He places each stick in the plants around the house. They search the house for any spirits, but they find nothing. Then, they go to the bedroom, where Kazman begins placing the sticks in the flower pots to prevent further disturbance from the spirit. During this, they catch a glimpse of the spirit, and Kazman throws a broomstick at it, driving it out of the house. Afterward, Kazman tells Sheren that her house is safe, and no one will bother her anymore. However, as they leave, a girl suddenly walks into the path of Kazman's car. He quickly gets out to check, but the girl has vanished. This makes him realize that it was a spirit causing these events. Kazman then removes his broom and drives away after getting into his car. But suddenly the spirit reappears, and we see it is a female spirit. The spirit attacks Kazman and kills him. She kills Kazman because he got in her way. She wanted to do something to Sheren or Rayhan. The scene then shifts back to Sharen's house, where all the strange occurrences start again. The baby stroller suddenly moves independently and falls down the stairs, waking Sheren up. She tells Rayhan about it, and they both go to check the stroller. The question arises, how could the stroller have fallen on its own? Sheren repeats this and says that the house was supposed to be safe, but Rayhan doesn't understand her concern. He then asks Sheren how the house was supposed to be secure, and Sheren explains that she had called a psychic named Kazman to remove the spirit. Rayhan responds that they didn't need any of that. Sheren, upset, replies that so much has been happening, and yet Rayhan is not taking it seriously. Sheren had called Rayhan's mother to ask about his nightmares. His mother explained that Rayhan had never had nightmares as a child, and even when he grew older, they never occurred. This made Sheren realize that Rayhan's nightmares had started only after they got married. She began to think that perhaps a spirit was unhappy about their marriage. Rayhan finally tells Sheren the truth. He is also a psychic and can see things. Sheren asks him if he has seen the spirit tormenting them. Rayhan denies seeing it, but promises that he will find out everything soon. The next day, Sheren learns that Kazman is no longer alive. He has passed away. Sheren is shocked by this news. Afterward, she and Rayhan attend Kazman's funeral, where they learn that after the accident, Kazman was in the ICU for 2 hours and said something during that time. Later, Rayhan feels the presence of a spirit at Kazman's house, and the two of them return home. Upon arriving, they get into an argument because Sheren believes that Kazman's death is connected to the spirit in their house. She argues that Kazman died after he had tried to protect their house from the spirit, and this cannot be a coincidence. However, Rayhan refuses to accept her reasoning. Because of this, Sheren decides to go to her father's house to escape the troubles. But Rayhan tells her that it won't help. If the spirit bothers her, it will follow her wherever she goes. He explains that spirits are not tied to specific places. They are connected to people. Hearing this, Sheren is left stunned. Rayhan then tells her he will try to escape the spirit immediately. That night, Rayhan hears a voice calling his name, Dinda, calling him brother. He goes to the stairs to investigate and sees a girl holding a flashlight. The girl shines the flashlight at Rayhan and then runs away. She then takes Rayhan to a room and locks him inside. Meanwhile, Sheren starts searching for Rayhan, but the spirit attacks her again. It starts throwing her around and then pushes her down the stairs. At that moment, Rayhan opens the door and sees his wife in this condition. Sheren is immediately taken to the hospital. The most crucial concern is whether Sheren's baby will survive, as the situation is highly critical. Sheren was admitted to the hospital, and her office friend was with her. As they talk, we see Rayhan, who has left his wife and gone to Dinda's place to ask her what exactly happened to him. Rayhan questions Dinda's aunt, and she explains everything to him. After hearing her, Rayhan leaves. Meanwhile, Sheren's friend accidentally drops a cup at the hospital, breaking it. She calls the housekeeper to clean up the mess. The housekeeper arrives, and as Sheren and her friend are talking, Sheren's friend pretends that she is not scared of ghosts at all. Hearing this, the housekeeper gets angry. She suddenly attacks Sheren's friend with a knife. A spirit had possessed this woman, and Dinda's spirit had controlled her. Her behavior alerts the security, but during this time, she pushes Sheren's friend, causing her to get injured. The security quickly arrives and apprehends the housekeeper, but Sheren seizes the opportunity and runs away because the spirit's only aim is to harm Sheren. Soon, Dinda attacks Sheren again, but Rayhan arrives just in time. As soon as Rayhan appears, the woman disappears. Sheren, angered, questions Rayhan about why he left her. Rayhan responds that he went to find out whose spirit was behind all of this, and now he knows. They both get into the car, and Rayhan tells Sheren about Dinda. Rayhan explains that ghosts had fascinated Dinda since childhood, but she couldn't see them easily. However, since Rayhan was a psychic, he could see spirits and always stayed close to Dinda. Their bond was intense. As they grew older, Dinda became more obsessed with Rayhan and eventually fell in love with him. However, Rayhan didn't feel the same way as they were cousins, and he had always seen her as a sister. But Dinda didn't care about this and would always be around Rayhan. One day, Rayhan was going to drop his friend Nida at her house, but Dinda showed up and wanted Rayhan to go with her instead of Nida. Seeing this, Nida stepped aside, and Rayhan left with Dinda. However, Rayhan didn't appreciate Dinda's behavior and told her they were cousins. This led to an argument, and Dinda got out of the car. She stood in the middle of the road, and Nida and her friend were coming on the other side. Because Dinda stood in the middle of the road, a truck crashed into Nida and her friend, killing them both. A few days after the accident, Rayhan meets Dinda. Dinda hadn't attended Nida's funeral, and when Rayhan questions her about it, it seems like she wasn't affected by the incident. This makes Rayhan leave angrily. Now, since Rayhan was a psychic and could see spirits, Dinda, knowing this, also developed a desire to see them. That's why she learned black magic so that she could see spirits. However, she made a pact with the devil during this time. A deal was struck. The scene shifts and the day arrives when Rayhan and Sheren are supposed to get married. When Dinda discovers this, she goes to her mother and angrily asks why she hasn't been told about it. Her mother tries to explain that Rayhan is her cousin and that nothing can happen, but Dinda becomes furious and locks herself in her room. She declares that she will go to their wedding and ruin everything. Hearing this, her mother locks her in the room to prevent her from doing anything. However, Dinda used black magic to gain strength, broke the door down, knocked her mother to the ground, and ran away. But she was unable to stop the wedding and, in the end, ended her life in despair over Rayhan's sorrow. Dinda had a childhood photo of Rayhan and herself, which they had vowed to keep forever. They promised that if either of them were to die first, the other would live on and stay with the deceased. Now, the scene shifts to the present day, where Rayhan recalls these memories and realizes that he must fulfill her wish to bring peace to Dinda's spirit. He understands he can only do this through her soul world. He must enter the soul world and speak with her to keep his promise. After this, both Rayhan and Sheren go to Dinda's mother's house. At Dinda's mother's house, Rayhan and Sheren meet with her, where Dinda's mother apologizes to Sheren. The scene shifts, and Rayhan says that to give peace to Dinda's spirit, he must fulfill his promise and go to where Dinda ended her life. As the morning arrives, Rayhan sets out for the factory, where many spirits are already gathered. He reaches Dinda, who pushes him violently, knocking him down. Rayhan then uses astral projection to enter the soul world and meets Dinda there. Dinda is thrilled to see him. Meanwhile, Sheren wakes up and asks Dinda's aunt about her husband. The aunt tells her where Rayhan has gone and why. Sheren then decides to go after him. Back in the soul world, Rayhan tells Dinda that he has come to bring her peace and wants to leave after that. Hearing this, Dinda gets angry again because she wants Rayhan to stay with her forever. However, Rayhan tells her he doesn't wish for Dinda, but Sheren. After this, Dinda takes Rayhan to the factory and shows him her body. At the same time, Sheren and her aunt arrive and see Rayhan's lifeless body. They call an ambulance and rush him to the hospital. Seeing this, Rayhan becomes distressed because his presence is slowly fading. He is dying. Dinda does not want to let him go. She tells him that she loves him deeply. Rayhan then asks her, "If you truly love me, would you hurt my family? Would you hurt Sheren knowing that she carries my child in her womb? Is this your love?" Hearing this, Dinda realizes how wrong she had been. She then hugs Rayhan and tells him that she will let him go. But at that moment, a demon possesses Dinda's spirit. It takes control of her. This is the same red demon that Dinda had encountered in the factory during her childhood. It is also the demon tormenting Rayhan in his nightmares, although he never fully understood what happened. When Dinda was a child, the demon had tried to take control of her, and it had followed her ever since. But at that time, Rayhan had brought Dinda back to her senses and saved her. All the evil acts Dinda's spirit had committed were the demon's influence. She didn't want to do any of those things. Meanwhile, Rayhan's breathing begins to slow, and the doctors sit helplessly, declaring him dead. Sheren cries uncontrollably, saying that she can't let him go like this. Meanwhile, the demon feeds on Rayhan's spirit in the soul world. Somehow Rayhan manages to escape and attempts to bring Dinda back to consciousness. Dinda awakens, and because of Rayhan's love, the demon leaves. Dinda thanks Rayhan for saving her life twice. once as a child and again today in the soul world. Otherwise, the demon would have consumed her soul. Dinda is now entirely at peace. Rayhan says his goodbyes and returns to his body. He regains consciousness in the hospital, and Sheren is overjoyed to see him awake. The doctors are shocked. The film ends on a positive note. So friends, this was the story of Janji Darah. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this